So the Siege of Winterfell season is now over, and we're moving into the first ever version of the Siege of Winterfell playoffs. And just like with Ultimate Conquest, there is a prediction bracket for this as well, and it obviously has the attached rewards just like the AC version does as well, with everyone being able to participate in it. So only the top 12 in Siege of Winterfell rank points got into this playoffs. It's 16 in Ultimate Conquest. It's also a single elimination format, which I think is fairly flawed, honestly, because the way this bracket will likely play out will be without any matches between, say, HOH, WTF, or MBE, just because there's no losers bracket. So there's probably 3 or 4 tiers to the alliances in here. You have Ban, WXC, and CAC as the top 3 who realistically can all probably win this if things go right for them. Then below that, you have HOH, WTF, and MBE, and then it drops down a tier below that as well. There were rumors that not registering on the final match would lose your qualification to the playoffs. That was misinformation. You do get in without registering. Dumb have only played 4 matches in the whole season, so they didn't register twice. I think that's on match 4 and match 6. So the no registering stuff is still going strong. It still needs to be fixed and patched realistically because it's not very healthy for the game whatsoever. And the final thing in terms of an overview of this before I get into the picks is it is 70 limit. So any alliances in here which may have participant concerns or of a very top heavy, for example, that will be very good for them. So that's very good for KSE, for example, because if you look at their bottom end, it's a lot of small accounts, a lot of alt accounts, but their top end is super, super strong because this is KSE with the ATD people, with the HHH people, with Jason and Menat. It has NFI's top end whales who can run Sunel Danny formations with B2, Savada, and people like that. It's got Dumb's whales. It even has some BTA in here, like Claudia Akron, who's a max count basically. So whilst CAC normally wouldn't be a realistic competitor for winning all of this, because it's 70 limit and you can sort of just shave off all these bottom end accounts and just focus in on all those whales at the top end, they will be a lot more competitive with WXC and Ban than people would have initially expected, I think. So a lot of these picks are very easy and there's very few to make compared to AC because it's single elimination. So WTF will easily win that. Yggdrasil down here just not in the same bracket of strength as WTF, obviously. They're, what's that, 8 million alliance score lower. Strength difference there is just too much. I think it's the same for us against Dumb, because as I said, going over KAC's roster, all of Dumb's whales have gone to KAC. Not sure if any of them have moved back yet. Don't think so. So if you look through here, there's not a lot of top end accounts that can carry these top end Siege of Winterfell matches in here. That will be a recurring theme throughout all of this. Is at the top end of these RTS matches, and I include All Out War in that, you need, or the victors at least, will be heavily dictated by who has the most Sunel Daenerys's, Airmadons, Danas, Baelishes. Those are the 5 realistically. And to narrow it down a bit more, I'd say it's mostly Sunel Daenerys and Airmadon, just because that is the highest sources of AoE damage. So when you have AoE damage on something like a Peace Town, and you're saying this Dumb roster's like 60 to 70 bracket of their roster, you just get mowed down by all that AoE damage. And if you don't have any of those accounts and you're playing someone that does, you are probably screwed. That is just the way it plays realistically. So the right hand side of the bracket in round 1 is pretty easy. The left hand side is a lot closer. So UTB in this final match, we're at 21 million alliance score. I think GCM are about 1 million higher. GCM are obviously a lot different compared to when I previously have made prediction videos, since they have received a lot of players from the N3O BDR merge into ban. They've also received Quadesh and Strike out of WTF, who are huge hitters in the RTS game modes. Realistically, I think GCM will take that quite handedly, just because they have more of those RTS carry accounts, like I said about. Like pretty much this whole top end here are all Sunel Daenerys accounts, with Knight Rider, Strike, Eternal Knight, Tweety, Minity, Quadesh. Not entirely sure about Drogon, but I think that top end RTS whale power will just be a bit too much. Or UTB, as far as I know, they have 0 Amazons in their roster, and maybe 2 Sunel Daenerys's. That may be totally incorrect, but a lot of their whales just aren't specifically designed to hard carry matches like this, so I'm going to go GCM. Leg and NW1 honestly might be the hardest pick in this whole bracket, which might be a surprising statement. Normally, I would quite handily pick NW1. We look through the match history. Leg have done a lot better than they have in terms of participants throughout the season, where NW1 are surprisingly struggling for participants throughout the season. But it's obviously 70 limit, as I've said before, so that isn't as much of a concern. The main concern for NW1 is their whales have left to join WXC for the playoffs. So I think the best way to show this is probably this match. So them being HD, this convincingly is probably the best win either of these alliances have had throughout the season. I think Leg's best will be against Nox there. But if we actually look closer at this match and look at the elimination rankings, BZZB is a WXC player, Gaia is a WXC player, CCKU has joined WXC for playoffs, Valyria is in NW1 but has joined WXC for playoffs as well. Fabco has joined WXC for playoffs. Relax has joined WXC for playoffs. Sergio Red has joined WXC for playoffs. So you can see pretty much the entire top end of NW1 have all left. Problemka's gone as well. I think there's 1 or 2 more as well. Obviously, when you read it out like that, NW1 have really been gutted there in terms of their normal roster, and Leg have lost no one. You have Y2N and Abdi Rahman going in and out, but they haven't been in Leg all season, so it doesn't really count. They've both played TQL throughout the season. Leg was 80k to 33k there, and NW1 was a little bit better. I'm not sure if there was any point gifting involved here past the 80k. I'm really not sure, but again, if we look at the top end of NW1 in this match, not there, not there, not there, not there, not there. I think Asen was one of those that jumped out, or DL Snow, one of the two. Again, Problemka not there. So it's hard to directly compare these two against each other. I really think this is a toss-up. I'm gonna pick Leg. I don't feel that confident in it, but for continuity's sake, maybe morale's sake, the actual accounts NW1 might still have a slight edge at the top end. Leg without Y2Win, Abdi, and people like that are quite middle heavy. Yeah, I will go Leg here. I do think this might be, up until the finals at least, the hardest pick though. In round 2, I think again, this is probably the easiest set of picks, similar to round 1, the right side here. WXC will smoke us. CAC, I expect to smoke WTF, although WTF might give this a bit of a shot, but they will be very outmatched roster-wise. MBE, I think, will handedly beat GCM, and Ban will obviously handedly beat Leg as well. Then round 3, we have the top 3 forming here, and MBE will just naturally fall out at that point. The account differences are just too big to compete at that point. And as I alluded to earlier, that's HOH, WTF, and MBE all out, having not played each other, which I do just think is fairly flawed. And the right here, we have WXC versus KAC. So I was expecting KAC and the ATD people to join WXC here, just to try and overwhelm ban. WXC have stacked up quite heavily. I think a lot of these people have left, so I can't show it specifically there, but you've had Gannicus join as max count, you've got Dra in there, all those NW1 people, you've got the WoW players, you've got the natural WXC roster in itself, obviously, you've got some players from Sin. It's a very, very thick roster. And then I've gone over where KSC has sourced all their people from before as well. So I think this is deceivingly well balanced in terms of a matchup because of the 70 limit. If it was a 100 limit, WXC would just slaughter them, I think, because their 70 to 100 grouping of players is just so much better and stronger. Again, going back to what I was talking about earlier, you want Sunel Daenerys's, you want Aemondon's, you want Dana's, Soraras now. Sunel Daenerys's and Aemondon's are the real game changers, in my opinion, just because of the AoE damage. So WXC has tons of them, CC, Dra, Y2N. They have a lot of people that can do both of them and just run free lineups. I assume Asterix definitely can, Ortizio I assume can, although I think he's tailed off spending a bit. General, like all these top-end accounts, probably deeper in that sense of being able to run all of it at the very top end than KSC has. KSC have, I think, 4 what you'd refer to as max accounts with Black Bear, Peacetown, Night King, which is Darius, and Akron. The tier below that is very deep and sneaky strong. So I think all in all, this is going to be a very well contested match, a very expensive match for everyone involved. But I do feel like WXC might just have a little bit too much at the top end. When your existing roster is as strong as theirs was, and you're bringing in people like Gannicus and Dra, that is huge, but it really wouldn't surprise me if KSC win that. I do think WXC should win it, and if they don't, I think they'll probably beat themselves up a bit. In terms of predictions, I think that's the safest way, at least, to go. Then we have the finals. So, what are the talking points here? I think WXC objectively have a better roster for Siege of Winterfell because of what I said before about those commanders needed to carry at this top end. WXC are very top heavy. I think going into this, WXC their 27.9 million alliance score ban in their last match. Oh, I didn't mean to do that. Okay, there we go. And BAM were 27.6 million alliance score, so it's pretty much identical. WXC very slightly higher. WXC, though, I think are a little top heavier. I mean, both are pretty top heavy at this point, and just generally insanely thick. I mean, when the average per member score is like 280k score, that's mental. If you're 280k score, you're a rally lead for WTF, HOH, and MBE in that 4 to 6 bracket. That's the average in these alliances, so that's just crazy. But Ban, I think, are a bit more middle thick, if that makes sense. They have more people at that 280 mark who are just well-built, thick accounts, whereas WXC just have these bonkers max, near max accounts who just own everything. All these Asian players like the Big A here or Matt Jenin that a lot of us English speaking players have probably not overly heard of, but they just have everything. That will be, I think, more tailored towards outpowering Ban. Ban, however, will have better shot calling and coordination, I would imagine. Shot calling definitely because of N3O in there. I do feel like some of the praise towards that historically has been a bit overstated, and it has just been a bit of count strength and commitment to the event throughout the roster, which comes across as more than that. But for sure, compared to WXC, I don't think you can try to claim that WXC are more ready and practiced to shot call a match like that. And it's one and done. You don't have time to learn. You just play it out. If you lose, you can't learn from your mistakes. You're just out. So I think Ban are better in that sense. I feel like Ban have more players used to playing intense Siege of Winterfell matches and matches you're playing with the intention to win rather than just show up and farm elims. And on that note, I would assume Ban will be more inclined to run support marches on their third lineups than some of the WXC people will be. Definitely see that in All Out War with BDR, especially. I've noticed running the Night King Melisandre marches. If they do that and WXC don't, especially on the people that can't run the free crazy F5 lineups, that would be a huge swing in Ban's favor. And I think all things considered, I will slightly edge Ban to take it all. It's a harder decision than I expected it to be, honestly, going into that final match, because each of those top end WXC whales will just be so hard to take down. You're going to have people get down their knees, grab a leg each, and just get dragged around a bit like toddlers until the health bars of something like a CCCPC's marches just get whittled down. It's just how it goes. But yeah, I think all in all, that is my predictions. I feel very confident about everything except NW1 leg, Ban WXC, and then potentially KSE WXC. Oh, another thing to note, the time it will be on the 13th of July. That will be on a Saturday. So it will probably be at 1 a.m. or 1300 on a weekend. I don't think that will really affect either of these, considering it's 70 limit. I think Ban have had, or BDR had issues in the past with bulking not being able to be piloted in AC matches. Maybe that will be an issue for them. I have no idea. But that would be a huge loss if any ripple on effects like that did come from the time. Because obviously WXC will just pick 13-1-7. So 1900 and 2200 just won't be picked. Yeah, it shouldn't be that game changing. So I am going to lock those in. This time we only have to wait 2 weeks to see how many of them come in correct.